call the February 3rd, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting of Glencoe Park District to order. Lisa, please call the roll and take note of the time.
7 p.m. President Covey,
Here.
Commissioner Cummins is not here, absent, sorry. Commissioner Guzman
Here.
Commissioner Hazen is also absent. Commissioner Reifman.
Here.
Does not look like we have any matters from the public since there is nobody. So we will skip to the discussion on the full year 2026-2027 budget first draft review. Director Kutera, will you please present the first draft budget and answer any questions?
All right. Thank you, President Covey. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. So as President Covey mentioned, here to present the fiscal 2026-27 budget this evening. Before we dive into the presentation tonight, I just wanted to take a quick minute to recognize the tremendous effort that really goes into the budget process. This is really not just a finance department exercise by any means. It's a 164-page budget document that you've all had the pleasure to review so far, and that really reflects the hard work, time, and input from staff across all departments. So Bobby and Kyle, thank you for the many hours that you and your staff have put into this document. And that's on top, of course, their day-to-day operations, which they also do so very well. Also want to thank Lisa for her leadership and guidance and continued support throughout the budget process. Trust me, she's always challenging us and ensuring that our financial planning aligns with our strategic priorities. And finally, I want to thank you, the board, and especially our treasurer, for your direction, oversight, and guidance throughout our budget process. So with that, we just kind of get into the slides here. I think we've seen this slide before, but just want to recap. As I mentioned, this is really a big lift by really everyone within the district, board, executive director, and all of our other departments. And we start the process in late May as we kind of kick things off. And it ultimately gets us to the end of May. So pretty much a year-round process when we file the budget and appropriation ordinance. So you can see on this slide we're at stage 6, we're at phase 6 of our budget. So we're nearing the end, and this is obviously the committee meeting that we're going to discuss the first draft. And then what the plan will be, we'll have the approval draft then presented at the March board meeting, and then we'll have our budget and appropriation ordinance approved at the April board meeting, which will give us our legal authority to spend funds on behalf of the district, and that's just required to be submitted to the county clerk's office by the end of May. So you have 3 months after your fiscal year end. Just very high level, getting into budget and appropriations here. And before we do get into the numbers, I just want to kind of remind everyone the difference between budget and appropriation. Sometimes those terms are used interchangeably, but they are two distinct different things here. So the budget is really that serves as our tool that we use to manage the day-to-day operations and ensure fiscal accountability. So, we're looking at the budget as a realistic number on, either the revenue we're going to take in or the expenditures that we're going to spend. Whereas the appropriation, that represents the legal limit that we have on spending. So again, that's why we need to submit that appropriation ordinance with the county. That's going to give us our legal authority. And that's really important because if we exceed budget, either revenue or expense side of things, if we exceed budget, it's might be a footnote disclosure in the financial statements, but it's not really necessarily a significant issue. And it happens quite often, to be honest, especially with our rec programming. If we have a new program or it just does better than what we were expecting, we might have expenditures that exceed what we had budgeted for in that program. Where it gets tricky is if we exceed appropriation, because appropriation, again, is that legal authority. So if we wind up in a situation where we are exceeding appropriation, we'll need to go through the pretty much the entire budget process of a 30-day inspection and public review of the documents and everything, and really kind of jump through a lot of hoops to amend that appropriation ordinance. So for that reason, we try to build in some cushion between our budget and appropriation. Typically, the benchmark across all districts and municipalities, you reserve about 20 to 25% of your for appropriation, just that additional cushion for the completely unforeseen, and kind of protects us from having to go through the hoopla of having to amend our budget. So this year we're planning on appropriating around 33.8 million compared to 35.7 in the prior year. And the main reason for that is there's a slight, that's all spending. So there was a slight decrease in our capital spending. So if you actually looked at our two major operating funds, there is an increase there of about 9%, which we're going to get into the detail on, but that's primarily related to rec programming. But the overall decrease is, again, the maintenance center project, which was fully budgeted in fiscal 26, now only partially budgeted in fiscal 27 for whatever remaining work's going to be completed March 1 and beyond. So overall, we're budgeting for a 10.18% increase in operating expenditures. But if we exclude our rec programming, which really drives a lot of that, then it's about 5.5%. So a more inline number with what we would expect to see. Obviously, the 10.8%, the recreation expense side of it is really tied directly to a revenue source. So we do see that our total operating revenue is budgeted to increase 10.23%. Again, driven by our rec programming, that's about a 15% increase for this upcoming budget year. Our capital budget is decreasing this year, as I mentioned, just the partial budget now for the Takeoff Maintenance Center and Takeoff Ball Field project, which was a full budget in the prior year. And we're also expecting for a very strong year for interest income again, which is very good, very positive thing for us. We're budgeting for about $470,000 in operating interest. That's compared to a projection of about $550,000 for the current fiscal year. So slightly down, but still realistic. We did see last week that the Feds did kind of stay put with their position on rates as of right now. Expectation is though we'll likely see those go down a bit over the course of our fiscal year. So we used an average interest rate of about 3.5%, which we feel is realistic, and hopefully we are able to reach that number in fiscal 27. So this is my favorite slide, but probably not everybody else's favorite slide. But this is an essential slide, in my opinion, because this really tells you everything that's going on at the district. This is really the 30,000-foot view of how much are we spending, how much are we taking in, how much are we transferring, and how much are we going to have left at the end of the year. So I'm certainly not going to get into each number on this slide here, but obviously I did point out one that I feel is the most relevant number that I'd want to discuss here tonight, and that's the excess revenue over expenditures for our major operating funds. So again, our major operating funds are the corporate and recreation funds. So as we look at fiscal 27, we're budgeting for approximately 2.3 million more in revenue than we're going to have in expenditures for our major operating funds. And that compares to about a $2 million increase in the prior year. So up slightly from the prior year. And, on the surface, that looks like a very healthy number. You think, wow, we're 2.3 million ahead. That's great. And it is, but there's just some additional things that I just want to kind of point out. So that number is before we make any capital transfers, and there's two types of capital transfers we make. There's the transfer to Fund 65, which is our keeping the lights on capital fund. We that's for the things that are not really all that appealing to the community or the non-exciting stuff, but roofs, lighting controls in the building, trucks for our parks team, things like that. And that is about $525,000 every year that we've set aside for that. That's traditionally, historically, what we've needed to help fund that capital. So you got to take that off right away. And then you remember I mentioned the interest income that we're looking at about $500,000 this year, which is excellent and certainly going to be beneficial to our capital project fund. But we need to obviously be careful not to absorb that interest income into our operating budget because that would set us up for big problems when interest rates went down. So certainly want to be able to maintain that cushion for the interest income that's coming in. So that takes it off, right there. That's about $1 million. That kind of puts us at 1.2 million. And then, of course, we do have the transfer to Fund 69, which funds the master plan capital projects, which we've had some very healthy transfers in prior years, and we're expecting another one this year, which I'll discuss in a few slides. But that's another piece that comes out of it. And then certainly there's other contingencies that could come up with these other funds. The one I'd like to mention is the pension retirement fund. So about 3 rows below that red circle, that's the pension and retirement fund. And that number is entirely an actuarial driven number. And what I will say is it's the lowest percentage. Our contribution share is the lowest it's been in 10 years. So, which is great. Again, they do smooth off investment gains and losses. The actuary is a 5-year smoothing method that they use. But, we're susceptible to changes in census data and retirees and things like that. So we have to make sure that, we have that cushion, because as that expense could potentially increase, that would directly pull from the levies that are going into those 2 major operating funds. So again, just to summarize it, a very healthy number for sure. Very pleased with that number. But just some additional things to keep in mind as we're looking at it, and kind of how it just figures into the overall framework and overall budget moving forward. So our projected ending fund balances, we're on the previous slide, but I've made it a little easier to see them here on this slide. As you can see, they're very strong. Our fund balance policy dictates that the general and recreation funds maintain a minimum of 50% fund balance. So we're obviously there this year. Overall, I think we're at about 59% combined. As far as the other operating funds go, that's about a 25% fund balance, with the exception of debt service. The bond and interest fund there, that's the lowest one we see there. That's at 12.47%, and that's okay. That's actually a little higher than we want to see, because that fund is really meant to just take in property tax revenue and then pay off the debt associated with it. The reason it does accumulate a fund balance over the course of the years is that there's a loss amount that the county applies to all property tax bills for the rare occasion where property tax bills are not paid by a homeowner. So there's a little loss amount to ensure that the taxing districts are still made whole for their levy. I mentioned the master plan capital transfer. So again, that's really part of that 2.2 million. That's a piece that funds it. And, interest income, as I mentioned, we're not going to count on that to fund our operations. That would be a recipe for disaster. So in my mind, the interest income that we're earning is essentially going into Fund 69 to alleviate the burden of additional debt or whatever we would need to carry out our master plan and capital improvement plan. So last year we transferred 2.4 million, which was done in July after our audited financial statements were done. And this year, within the framework of the budget, we're proposing a $700,000 transfer out of the corporate fund and a $1,250,000 transfer from the recreation fund. The way this works is the board would commit this fund balance at the February board meeting. And commitment is just the gap, the technical term that we have for these funds, basically saying that the board has taken action to set it aside. And ideally, we don't want too much fund balance sitting in what they refer to as unassigned fund balance at the end of our fiscal year. So that's why we go through with that commitment, just to demonstrate that, hey, yeah, we have this fund balance, but we have a plan for it. We have a capital improvement plan, and that's what we're planning on using it for. From a fiscal standpoint, I just kind of wanted to talk about our top 3 challenges as we enter the new fiscal year. So We'll obviously have still continuing on with some of these large capital projects that we're working through, specifically the one right outside the maintenance center and Take-If Ball Field project. So, you know, considering the geopolitical and broader macroeconomic climate here, you know, we're a tweet away or you know, from another tariff or whatever it might be. So, you know, staying on top of that and making sure that we're executing on those projects, which obviously it's been a great year. So this past year, I know Kyle and his team are doing a tremendous job with that, but certainly remains a challenge. Staying on top at the top in terms of our level of service, we know what the community expects from us, and we are committed to delivering it. You know, but being able to maintain that high level of service with maybe conflicting interests in the community and demographic changes is certainly always a challenge. And then you'll see, as you've probably seen in the budget document, and you'll hear me talk about tonight, our rec programs are just doing phenomenal. They're really doing a great job. And so just keeping with that demand, and then considering the fact that, you know, we are a landlocked community and there's just not many other places we can go to continue to build our rec programs. We're obviously landlocked and might not have the ability to expand to meet that demand. Just again, a high level here, our budgeted operating revenue, just in a graph format here. What's really good to see here is that our program fees represented in the yellow here are accounting for 63% of our revenues. So when you look at that, that tells us that, you know, our reliance or our biggest concentration of revenue is really a revenue source that we can control. Program fees, we can obviously dictate, you know, whether it's where we're setting the fees or the number of programs we're running or whatever we're doing. We have flexibility there. Now, the second largest revenue stream at 33% is property taxes. And again, that's capped. That's not really a revenue source we can control. So we don't want to have too much reliance on a revenue source that we're not able to control. So that ratio this year is about 63 to 33%. In a couple slides, I have a historical representation of where that number's been, but it is pretty consistent and really where we want to see that number for sure. And again, interest income, 3%, which is very nice to see. And I did just want to point out, like, so as you look at these program fees, if we were to compare ourselves to our neighbors to the west, Northbrook, we're doing about 82% of the program revenue that that Northbrook Park District does. But when you look at their population, obviously they're at about 35,000. We're at about 8,000. So it's really that kind of helps, I think, to put things in perspective. Their most recent financials showed a little under 12 million. We're at 9.7.
Taking out golf.
They
Half day free school, because like 30% of our program fees is children's. That's it. That's a huge.
Our programs are much stronger. Our camps are stronger before and after school, and then, yes, Children's Circle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you had mentioned that number's around 10 million this year, and again, 30% is Children's Circle. If you were to look at that number 10 years ago, I just went to take a peek at it. It was at 4.1. So it's just tremendous growth over the past 10 years. So this, just if you think back to that yellow slice of the pie on the previous slide, this is an even more encouraging slide as far as I'm concerned, because this just graphically depicts the diversification that we have within those program revenues. So again, 63% of our revenue is broken out by a well-diversified portfolio of programs here. We're not really placing a lot of reliance on any individual one. I point to the two largest ones here, which are camps and kids club, 26% and 18% respectively. And those are really the essential programs for the community that the community really needs, you know, to be able to care for their kids in the summer when school's out. And this past couple weeks ago, when we had that really cold Friday, the demand for school days off was through the roof. And you know, kids club and being able to provide that service to the community is very important. So those are our two largest. And then if you look at all the other programs ranging from, 6 to 14% from athletics to specialty camps. So again, pretty well diversification here. So, again, what this tells me, we look at specialty camps, that's a nice number there, 14%. That's FSA, that's Game On. And those are the programs where, FSA can just decide, hey, we're not going to re-up with Glencoe next year and we're going to head off to Lake Forest or wherever it might be. So if that happens, we're certainly well positioned to be able to absorb that based on the diversified revenue streams that we have here. So again, this is very encouraging to see. Not only is the ratio of property taxes to program fees encouraging, but certainly the diversification we have amongst the recreation programs. Before we get into the discussion on property taxes, just felt this would be a good opportunity to recap our categories of service. So as a reminder, we do review this annually with the board. We did last July. And this really serves as the foundation for our budgets, kind of how we're building them. And I'm not going to get into the detail on each column here, but just pointing out the column here to the left. And that lists out what we refer to as our fully subsidized programs. So parks, playgrounds, the ice at Weinberg, some of the special events that we run, the beach. Those are things that are basically paid for with property tax revenue. We're not looking to collect user fees or program revenues for that. So that's the essential need for that property tax revenue to be able to make sure that we have parks that our community can enjoy and visit anytime and just engage in more of that passive recreation. So property taxes, obviously we discussed in November and approved the ordinance here. So we are capped at 2.9% for our existing property this year. That's tied to CPI as of the prior year, as of 12/31/24. And as I mentioned, this is just the historical chart here depicting what ratio our property taxes has been to our total operating revenue. So again, all the way to the right, that's what we're projecting for fiscal 26. And then as I mentioned a few slides back, we're planning on about 33% for our fiscal 27 budget. Our comprehensive plan does stipulate that we maintain at least a 50 to 50 ratio, which would be a healthy number. But again, the lower we can get it, the less reliance we have on that capped revenue source. That's important. So this just kind of is a reminder for every $1 that a Glencoe resident pays in property taxes, 36 cents goes to District 35, 25 cents goes to the high school district. The village gets 15 cents, and then we're fourth in line there at about 7 cents. And then there's some remaining taxing bodies there, the library, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and the County of Cook. So just a reminder, we're 7% of the property tax bill. But again, those 7 cents are vital to the community in maintaining parks and some of those essential services.
Missed it, we're 7% of taxes.
And 100% of the fund. Absolutely.
Forget that line.
They only use that like 17 times.
Yeah, it's our tax.
So as we look at the category of expenditures for the upcoming year, we see that our top three are personnel, contractual, and then ultimately debt service and insurance are combined or tied there for 8. So personnel is our biggest expense. It's at 38% this year, which is really right in line with prior year. Prior year was at 37%. And our contractual makes up nearly 28%. Again, right in line with the prior year. It was 27% in the prior year. And that's such a big number because, again, that's the expense that we pay for our recreation program. So a lot of our contractual programs, there's a specified revenue split. In most cases, we're going to see 70-30 split. So the expenditures, the 70% associated with that revenue is reflected here in that orange piece of the pie.
And to be clear, personnel is all employees, not just like overhead or like admin employees. Correct?
That's all employees. That's full-time salaries, part-time wages. That's all grouped in there. Correct. Debt service did go down slightly this year. There was an increase last year which was just a function of our bond issuance. So along the lines of the personnel, the board did approve a 4% merit pool, actually a 2.9% COLA and a 1.1% merit pool. So overall 4%. That equates to slightly under $150,000 from the prior year, and that's been worked into the budget that has been presented to you all. We'll just kind of go high level on capital projects. I know Kyle has discussed all of these in detail in previous meetings in December. But just a recap and a reminder of what we're looking at from a capital perspective in this year's budget. So this is Fund 69. So this is non-referendum projects. So this is funded by primarily the transfer that we talked about, that 1.95 that we're doing this year and the 2.45 that we did last year. That's what's primarily funding Fund 69. So the big one this year is West Park, a little over $2 million. 270 of that is going to be paid from the special rec tax levy for the accessibility improvements that we're making, primarily related to the walking path. And then that number is a gross expense number. So we are expecting, that's the OSLAD project. So we are expecting to get a $600,000 payment from the state of Illinois. Unfortunately, we can't really rely on that money anytime soon. We go through the project, we demonstrate we've met our requirements as part of the project. We send in those documents, and then they take a very long time to kind of turn around and get that money to us. But we get it nonetheless, and we're anticipating to get that in fiscal 28. So it's not budgeted for this fiscal year. So Fund 68 is our referendum bond projects. So the largest one here still is the project right outside. So that 4.1 million on this screen represents the carryover that we have from the prior year. So this is all the work that's going to be done March 1 and beyond. GAAP requires that we literally identify when the work takes place, and that's when the expense has to be recognized. A little piece there for the furniture for the greenhouse, and then everything else is beach related. We'll be getting into the cost of the structures, so the trellis and the sun shelters that we've talked about, and obviously the renovation of the beach house itself. And then we'll also be getting into the expense related to the beach playground. Obviously still on track to get these spent down. We're tracking interest income to ensure there's no arbitrage rebate due to the government. If there is, that's a good thing. That means we maximize our interest income. But again, spending down those proceeds bond proceeds as we've anticipated. This is the keeping the lights on, that Fund 65 that I had mentioned, the $525,000 transfer that we do to kind of fund this. Few carryover items from last year, so it's a little more than what the transfer is this year because there was some residual fund balance in the fund. Again, Kyle's spoken to all of these purchases that we're planning on making out of Fund 65 this year. This is a helpful slide to just kind of take a bigger picture view of where we stand with our capital improvement plan and our fund balance within our capital project fund. So this excludes Fund 65. We're not really going to bring in the keeping the lights capital in here, but this is 68 and 69. And we see that the magenta line item there is our fund balance, and we're starting the year around $10 million in fund balance. That's directly a result of the bond issuance. We issued 15 million in bonds last year. So we're spending down those proceeds. But we didn't, before we issued those bonds, we still had about $5-6 million in that fund. And we're continuing to add to that fund as part of our overall capital funding strategy. It's not just bonds. That's that capital transfer that we have from the operating funds. It's interest income that we're earning. Certainly, we're very active with grants and have had a lot of success with grants in previous years. The park grant for Weinberg, the OSLAD grant for West Park. Unfortunately, given the current political climate, especially in Washington, it's unlikely we'll be receiving a ton more in grants, but we're certainly always looking out for those opportunities, and we'll capitalize on those as much as we can. The other piece to that funding strategy is donations. So along those lines, you see the green line here. That represents our revenue that we're expecting within these funds over the course of the next 5 years. And you see it's a little higher in fiscal 2027, 28. And that's because our transfers a little higher this year than what we're projecting out then in future years. We're projecting out a little over 2 million, or budgeting a little over under 2 million this year. Moving forward, we do it more of a rolling 10-year, and then that number is a little lower, in about 1.3, 1.4. We also have the $600,000 in the OSLAD proceeds worked into that number. So you see that green kind of levels off then, which is primarily a lower transfer, lower interest income in future years. We're expecting interest income to get down to where it should be, probably around 2% in future fiscal years. And then the blue line represents the expenditures that we'll be making. So again, this is just a quick, nice high level overview of, what are the big expenses we have coming in the next 5 years. And at the end of fiscal 29, we'll be done with the referendum bonds. The final expense there is the stairs for the beach. And then we'll basically be into our Fund 69 fund balance to fund the remaining projects here, the biggest of which are going to be the mechanicals at Weinberg. So the chilling floor and all the mechanicals underneath to circulate the cold. Kyle could definitely speak more to it if you wanted detail on that. And then a ball field project coming up after that. Any questions on the capital project multiple year overview? I know this is helpful for me to kind of take a look at. So.
The bottom is the overall expense, and it is not inclusive of any grants that we may get. So West Park at 1.8 does not include.
That is correct, and it's
600.
that is correct, and it's 1.8 because 270 is being paid from the special rec fund.
And as far as capital projects, we've budgeted the big ticket items. There's going to be smaller projects such as Everly Deeds as we go along. If there's projects like that we're working on that maybe not as high a dollar figure, but there's still little projects that will be added in as those years come up. Sure, that makes sense.
All right, so we'll try to not take you too much into technical terms here and everything, but just some essential things that we need to know as we're reviewing the budget. This is a listing out of our funds. So our two major operating funds, as I mentioned, are the corporate fund and recreation fund. So those are funds 10 and funds 25, fund 25. Within the corporate fund, there are 5 departments. I don't really count G&A because that's kind of a net to zero department. But we have admin, parks, Weinberg, beach, and the boathouse. And then in the rec fund, we have the TAKEF admin, rec programs, children's circle, and fitness. So the bottom 3 there under the rec fund, that's basically our program revenue. There's a little bit of program revenue in beach and Weinberg and boat, but the lion's share of it is there. And then the other funds, I'm not going to get into too much detail on. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. And again, those capital project funds that I mentioned, 65, keeping the lights on, 68 and 69, master plan differentiated by either referendum bonds or not. The format of our general ledger, again, this will be helpful to know if you do get into some detail here. Again, that first number is going to be the fund. The second number is the department. And then really only for rec programs will there be a program number associated with it. And then the account number is pretty straightforward. 4,000 series would be revenue, 5,000 series would be expenditures. Just real quick, this is what a typical budget detail is going to look like. So again, I'm starting in Fund 10, right below our logo there, corporate fund. 00 is the administration department. There's no program here because it's not in the rec fund. And then the account, our tax receipts, again, starts with a 4,000 series. So if you do get into the budget detail, I'm just kind of walking you through how you'd read that. If you are so ambitious to get in there on your own, that's great. But of course, I'm available to answer any questions or help you walk through it if you'd like, feel free to reach out. Gonna just spend the rest of the slides here, are gonna walk through some of the larger departments. And what I did here is just took our fiscal 26 budget, our fiscal 27 budget, and identified the variance both by dollar amount and percentage, and highlighted the variance. If it's a favorable variance, it's green. If it's an unfavorable variance, it's in the red, and I use that in quotes because unfavorable doesn't necessarily mean bad. It's just kind of how we're planning to spend. So in the corporate administration department, we see a $95,000 increase in our property tax revenue. So that's about 3.3%. Remember the old property, existing EAV is capped at 2.9%. So the difference there is whatever residual we might get from Forest Edge subdivision. Interest income we talked about. So we're projecting 240 this year. We're budgeting 215 for next year. We budgeted 185 last year. That turned out to be on the lower end. I think the 215 is pretty realistic at this point. The Fed is going to start slashing, and we're going to get a little lower. And then the fund transfer out, just lower this year based on a function of what we're transferring and kind of how the numbers all fell into place. So again, we had a $2,450,000 transfer last year. 1 million of it came from the corporate fund. This year, that transfer is only $700,000.
Now, remind me, what are rentals in the corporate?
That's take if bill. That's in the corporate fund actually.
I don't know why we have any rentals in corporate.
Yeah, it might be room related.
Eh.
I'd have to. It's a small.
It's so
number.
small. It doesn't make. I was just.
Yeah, I'd have to look into
I'm not
that.
worried about it. I was just curious if there was something that
Yeah,
I was missing.
yeah, rooms would be out of take if admin. That'll come to me. General administrative. So basically, this account isn't in and out. This department is used to charge the other departments some of the significant expenses associated with the general overhead in the district. So think a lot of the administrative office, the HR function, Lisa, things like that are paid out of here and then allocated to the other departments within the district. So here we see salaries increased. So we have the 4% merit pool. The increase is a little under 8%. And that's because we're budgeting a new HR and safety specialist position as our FTEs continue to grow, as the demands around safety and the complexities around HR continue to grow. We're investing in that position.
I remember when we didn't have someone from HR.
You know,
4 years ago, we didn't have anybody.
world of COVID changed everything.
Yeah.
Yep. And just the safety aspect. So half this job will be HR, half will be safety. So we'll take some of that
Yeah.
burden off of John and Kyle and put it in the position and also help,
Where are you gonna,
Shannon with like our training and things like that. So it'll be great.
where are you gonna put this person?
In the admin office where we're the part-time person used to sit. So it's a
Across from
full-time.
Brian?
Yeah,
Yes.
she's next to Brian.
Yeah, next to Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for context, we had 5 years ago 36 FTEs. We're at 59.
I
now.
know, it's, I mean, you guys you're growing like wildfire.
Yep. A common thing you're going to hear tonight as I'm walking through the departments is our health insurance. Premiums went up 10%, which is pretty not too bad actually when you compare to when you look at overall industry data and where that number's for some of the private sector and just in general. We saw a bigger increase than 10%. A lot of that is tied to just demographics. We had lost some folks in Kyle's department that were, single insurance payers. Actually, a couple, I think, moved on to the village. We replaced those folks with folks with families, which has a significant impact on the overall cost of insurance.
And if staff's growing up and they're starting to get married and have kids of their own.
Correct. We just
birth
had a
yesterday.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
2 days ago. Yeah.
Saying,
I have a
I
question.
was saying
Yeah.
to Jackie that I actually think we've had historically kind of low healthcare to salary ratio, and now it's probably coming back into the line of
Yeah.
normal. Like your
Well-
guys you have 2 million in salaries. No, what are your salaries now? Was I saying, You're at 6 million in salaries?
Yeah, about when you include the part-time. Yeah, full-time salaries are about 4.
Yeah. And your health insurance is at 350? No, that was just for one corporate, for one fund.
Yeah, last year our health insurance was a little under $1 million.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the corporate fund, but I think your ratio is probably getting, it would be interesting to see what other park districts are seeing in terms of the percentage, what their fringe costs are.
Yeah.
Like we do fringe at about 35%.
We can benchmark that. I think what helps that number is the insurance buyout. That was
Yeah.
very successful for us. I think we have about 10 people using that insurance buyout, and the amount we save. A family, we pay them about 5,700. Family insurance, if you do the PPO, is about 40,000.
I
It's,
remember arguing that was too high.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have opted out anyway, but that's a whole
Yeah.
different story.
I know that at my firm, premiums every year keep, they just keep going up. We always go back and try to negotiate it down a little bit. Some years we're successful,
Yeah.
some years not. Do we do that? as
yeah, that's a
practice?
great,
Is that- yeah.
great question. So we're aligned with Paderma Health. There's about, it's in the mid 80s. I want to say about 84 of the agencies. So we're all kind of joined together within that pool. And so we're able to leverage the numbers within the other districts and the
great.
overall to try to get the best rate. And they are diligent about that. Paderma Health is, they were, just an example of that is the increase was 15%. And so they kind of went and we're trying to be creative and within the PPO network, they adjusted co-insurance to be to just add another layer of network, like a preferred network. There's preferred network, in network, and out in network.
Okay.
And so adding the preferred network, still, I think like 96% of providers were included in that preferred network, but it helped knock down the premium increase from 15% to 10%. So they're diligent with
Yeah,
that.
good.
We're active in it. We're on we sit in on the health program council calls. We're voting members and everything. Bobby's on Paderma's finance committee, so we're certainly helping to drive that policy too, for sure. So.
Creating that co-op really,
Oh, yeah.
the
Good. More
Yeah.
power.
more power than going by yourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's actually a good problem.
Mhm.
It's as crazy as it may sound, because as we're growing and we're changing our labor model and we're trying to recruit people, we want them to be more full-time or we want them to be more, long committed. This is a benefit.
Mhm. And
So
experience, if you want experience
Yeah.
staff, you're going to pay a little bit more insurance because they'll come with families.
Well, I was gonna say, if you come with families, I would think that we would have more retention as
Exactly.
well.
That's
Like,
right.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
For example, we just hired someone in the kitchen, and
Mhm.
his main driver from coming from the hotel industry was our insurance and our
Yeah.
daycare program.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to place till my child, so we probably have him for 5 years.
Yeah.
So some of those fringe benefits that we offer help retain our staff, which is very important to do. So a mixture of everything, pay and fringe benefits, insurance and things like that keep people.
All right, so as we get into Kyle's department here, Parks and Maintenance, so we look at salaries and wages and we're actually decreasing this year. We're going from 525 to 509, so a 3% decrease. And that's kind of what I had mentioned. We had lost, turned over quite a few in the department. I know a couple went to the village for higher wages. So, losing those people who were actually single insurance users, we did replace those positions with family folks. So, an increase in the insurance there we see of 63%. So a very sizable increase. So while our salaries went down, just the demographic change of what the insurance needs for those employees were kind of offset that and put it overall below.
I did hope when we were building the maintenance center that we would find some efficiencies with labor. I remember saying like, you couldn't find tools before and now we can find
Right.
tools. Maybe, maybe we'll have some
We
efficiencies.
save a job.
I was hoping it was more than 3% and not offset by insurance, but
You'll
I
we'll
see.
have more projects.
Yeah, they're gonna be much more
And work, and working, more work done doesn't mean we need less staff. But I do want to say, since we talked about salaries and wages and losing staff to the village, our last salary survey that the board approved, we did benchmark our salaries against the village in certain positions. And some of those positions were directly in the Parks Department, we're competing directly for the same jobs with the village. So those salaries you'll see start to go up in those areas to make us more competitive in the village. We probably won't ever get there totally, but we are, moving that mark a little bit.
And we did do market adjustments for 3 of those
We
laborers.
did, exactly, so that
So-
we are more competitive. So we
Ma-
don't want to be the training ground.
Making an
for-
effort.
I do think it's actually nice though for maybe for the village overall, for all of us, if they have had some cross training where they know the parks really well, they know the village really well, that could be a benefit
Yeah.
Yeah.
for all, I know we don't want to lose them, but.
No.
And the, re-
Lisa's like,
Every time we lose someone,
Mm.
there's a cost to that.
Oh, there's absolutely.
Yes,
cost.
there-
We
yeah,
want.
But I
we want-
hear you.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the reality is it's somewhat apples to oranges when you're comparing union
Yeah.
to non-union and
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're
they
getting
do.
into
That's
union positions. So,
That's why
you know,
I
that
asked.
just underscores the importance of our benefits that, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to help.
It also underscores, like we did the same exercise with our rec managers and our department heads against our neighboring park districts, is even though they may be larger, the job's still the same. So we want to make sure we're competitive. So probably about 8 years ago, I kept on losing people to our neighboring districts. I'm like, we're tired of being the training ground. This job is actually in a lot of ways harder because we have less layers. And so we wanted to keep them. So we rose at that time, those wages also, so that we're very competitive with our neighbors. So they're not leaving for that reason. They might leave for a different experience, to gain experience or higher positions, but they're not leaving because of wages anymore for that. So now we have to get that to that point in the Parks Department too. That makes sense?
Just real quick, so the capital number we see going from 265 to 189. We've talked about, I think, in a few of the financial reports over the past couple of months, the Shelton Park Drainage Project. We had budgeted for about $100,000 this year. We had carried out the project for around that cost. So that's not a recurring expense, obviously. So we're seeing a decrease in what they're budgeting for capital in the Parks Department. Take-If Admin Department, so that, again, this is the part of the recreation fund that isn't really funded by too many user fees. We have some small rentals in here. Those are the Take-If rentals, the Hakafas and the things of that nature that are reflected here. And this one does mirror the corporate admin as far as tax receipts and interest income. So I'm not going to talk about those two in detail. Property taxes are going up a little less than 5%, and that's just kind of how the levy's allocated. Again, it's still capped by 2.9%. It's just the levy's one big piece, one big pie, and it's just how we portion out the pieces of pie across the different funds. So that's why there's a little difference there, a little more of an increase than the corporate fund. Interest income is identical to the corporate admin department, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But here's another fund where we see salaries and wages actually going down. And that's a little over $1 million, a little under $1.05 last year to about $1 million this year. So again, a 3% decrease. Now that's due in part, and I'll talk to on the next slide, just the reallocation of salaries to children's circles. So with all the restructuring and changes that are going on down there, the kind of changes from ELC and the new Penguins and Polar Bears classrooms, Bobby and his team kind of reevaluated allocation of salaries between, you know, what was going to the Take-If Admin Fund, what should be going to Children's Circle, and ultimately kind of change some of the allocation. So I'll speak to that a little more on the next slide. There's that insurance again. So in this fund, it's about 18%. So premium increases and open enrollment changes. So changes in positions and changes in some of the demographics associated with those positions, ultimately resulting in that increase in insurance expense. The fund transfer out, again, that's the 1.45 in the prior year, 1.25 in the current year, netted off with a few other things there for a $107,000 decrease.
I do think it is important for us sometime between now and April to do a fringe, like I mentioned before, sort of a fringe analysis over time. We should track and see where that's going. But I think importantly, it's hard for me to understand. I know it's a big number because it's a big number increase, but overall it's still a small number. What do you think that means that we do? Do we charge more in fees? Do we absorb this? Is there something that we're not going to do because we're spending a few $100,000 more on healthcare, or like, what do you think? What do you think this means?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't think we're really sacrificing anything, to be honest. I think, to your point, we have been fortunate in
Yeah.
what has been elected in the past. The insurance buyout has been very successful for us. There's some contingency in there too. We plan for, maybe a baby in the next year. We plan for, there's another variable here because it's an HRA. So we plan for some contingency there as it relates to just actual claims,
Right.
because it will impact us. But, in my opinion, we've been fortunate. We continue with the insurance buyout program, and it's just ebbing and
I
flowing.
mean, I understand we've been fortunate. The fact that we're spending a few $100,000 more this year means that we're not going to be spending a few hundred on something.
Yeah.
Now it's probably going to be spread, or you increase your fees. right?
Which you see revenue growing 15% for next year. So when we look overall from about 30,000 feet, I think financially we're in a very healthy situation because we've grown that revenue, grown the camp revenue. I think if overall revenue is stagnant and expenses are increasing 10%, I think that's a different conversation. And maybe that's something we have in the future, because I do sit on the Paderma Finance Board, and I can tell you that claim costs are not going down, and insurance is definitely trending above the inflation rate, or 2.9%. But because we have been diligent about growing revenue, I think it's a different conversation to that if we were flat.
Right. We diversify our revenue
Mhm.
greatly, but like you said, if we would lose, say, a major athletic camp, then we'd have to look at that. If we're seeing a lot of insurance rising, we may have to make children's circle fees go up a little bit, because that's a big chunk of where those insurance benefits are coming from. So we have to look at that time. We're still transferring close to $2 million. So obviously, you're not hurting at all.
Right.
So if we ever had the point where that transfer is going down to, say, million or under $1 million, then we probably look more aggressively at our fees. But again, remember, our mission is also to provide services, so we want to keep those fees affordable for the community to come.
Yeah, no, I know it's a balancing act. I just want to.
Yep.
It-
We
it's-
watch that.
Michael,
Yeah.
maybe the point you're drawing out, I think this is the part that I've been thinking a lot about, is there's a point in which we're not getting the right kind of leverage off of our fixed costs and our fixed assets. Like right now, it seems like we are, but what's the tipping point? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's, I think, the question I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should do two things. One, we are going to have to know what the tipping point is, right?
Right.
And what that ends up happening is, before I think you get to that tipping point, you're going to have to raise insurance rates, right?
Right.
Which is terrible for the employee, but that's what
That's
happens
what's
in
happening
the-
right
Yeah,
now. It's
Absolutely.
Two is, like, we have to benchmark, I think, and that's what the benchmarking is. If our fringe is 30% of, 30% of comp, that's sort of in the range of normal. If we were at 20% before and now we're at like 28%, I'm gonna be like, this is great,
Right.
because you're still kind of 3 to 5 points below what I think the industry is. So we just don't have the information, but at some point, I think you're either gonna have to,
there's this
you can't absorb all of it. It goes back to the employee, and that's just
Yeah.
tough.
It does, and I think it goes back to, if the tipping point, to me, the formula would be, the tipping point is going to change if the revenue stagnates, like you
Right.
said. And if we are not coming up with innovative programming or figuring out different ways to leverage the fixed assets of the community.
Right.
Even if the dollars of insurance start to decrease, let's pretend like they might. If we don't have a solution on that side of the equation, this won't even matter, is kind of how I think about it. So there's these I think of them as different points, actually, not just one tipping point, where we would have to benchmark or try to understand.
I think there's small things we can also do. John's done a really good job of creating a benefit plan that we're incentivizing people maybe on an HMO plan versus a PPO plan, and those some real savings. John, I don't know if you want to talk to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the HMO, if you look at, I think I had mentioned the PPO, your family wise, you're saving probably $10,000 a year between HMO and PPO.
I'm
So
on HMO and it works great.
I'm on HMO. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I
Northwest
love it.
Medicine's included.
Mhm.
You're sort of kind of done.
So we definitely try to sell that and we basically incentivize employees through the premiums. They're lower for HMO. Certainly, we're going to split some of that. We're going to pass on some of those savings to the employee themselves too. So that's been good too. But the buyout has been really successful too. That's been so
So what's the
paying.
buyout? I guess when
So-
you said
so
buyout, I was thinking it was
yeah.
like volunteering to go to HMO, but no.
Yeah,
that's
so
not
the
what it is.
buyout is if you have the opportunity to get insurance, maybe through other means, most
Oh,
commonly
I
your
see, like a
spouse.
spouse. Okay.
If you take your spouse's
Yep.
insurance, we'll pay it out. And why that's beneficial is because in the government sector, we typically are a little better in the benefits that we offer. Obviously, we're part of an 84 agency co-op. Whereas somebody's spouse might be working for just a small private company that is, paying a lot higher in insurance costs. But if we're able to kind of pay that difference, it's a win-win for everybody. So again, keeping a family off, taking the buyout, that's 40,000, that's about 35,000 in savings. And I know we have, I think, 5 family buyouts that we're doing right now.
It also makes the employees comp package higher. So if it's an extra $5,000, everybody knows what everybody makes at every district, right? So if you're comparing a program manager's job and they're taking the buyout and their salary is $5,000 higher as a result, they're now stickier as an employee and they're really not able to move. So we've saved $35,000 plus we've increased their benefit package. They're happier. They're moving. They're kind of staying because of that. So I think it's been a huge win over that. It's probably saved us $1 million, I would guess.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other questions on this slide?
Good questions.
So Children's Circle, and a lot of big numbers here that I want to kind of speak to here. So first off, top line revenue, we see a $635,000 increase. Fiscal 26, we only had a partial year budgeted for those new classrooms. So penguins and polar bears represent about 16% of the increase here. And then the remaining growth is driven really by a more structured and strategic approach to accepting new students within the program. So we're reducing periods of unusable classroom space due to birthdays and timing like that. So enrollment is more consistent, more fluid. And I know Bobby and Molly worked really hard on that to kind of polish that up and get that to a point where we're essentially maximizing revenue to the best of our ability here. So you remember on the previous slide, I mentioned a 3% decrease in salaries. Here's where we see the massive increase in salaries, 18% or $320,000. Obviously, there's 4 full-time positions for the 2 new classrooms alone that are being accounted for within that number. The merit pool in there too. So if you took the increase in Children's Circle, kind of netted that with the decrease in the TAKEF admin department, that overall number is around 10%. And again, that factors in the new rooms that we have for penguins and polar bears. As far as contractual goes, we do see an increase in contractual. Obviously, our food service expenditures are going up for the 2 new classrooms. And, once again, we see the insurance number at a large number. Again, 4 new FTEs. So that's 4 new health insurance that we budgeted for to account for that, along with the 10% increase in premium. So again, here 33%. So again, that common theme that we've talked about tonight with the health insurance. Any questions on Children's Circle? Some of the more high profile departments here, maybe not necessarily as significant from a budget perspective, but just wanted to talk through each of these. So we have the Weinberg, we're budgeting 226 compared to 180 in the prior year. 30,000 at the beach compared to 10,000 last year, as far as a decrease, and then a decrease of 85 for boating compared to 72 in the prior year. Weinberg has to do with, actually Weinberg and Beach have to do with a change in the custodial allocation within the departments. So we've kind of worked away from having part-time custodians. We do have our full-time folks that we need. They're great, help with building setups, help being here at odd times. But we are shifting a bit more to a contractual approach for some of the maybe part-time labor that we were using. And it's afforded us the opportunity to have more of a direct allocation. We're not really kind of guessing on where a part-time employee spending his money. We're getting direct dollars on, okay, this is what it's going to cost to clean this facility. This is what it's going to cost. So we could be a little more precise there, and it's just resulted in some more expense across those departments. A bit more capital in the beach too. A slight increase of about $7,000 there too. Fitness, we're having a great year and expecting it to do well again.
Having a
next year.
healthy year.
Healthy year.
No,
Absolutely.
no pun intended. So fitness or those other departments, kind of just recapping that. Any questions on the other departments here? Again, smaller, but important to the community. So just wanted to mention.
Oh, I do have a question
Yeah.
about just since Boathouse is there with I've actually had a number of people who were, contemplating, they're the paddleboard people and the boaters. When the beach shuts down just for this upcoming 2027, are we, because it's shutting down at Labor Day, is that also when it's no longer accessible and there won't be anybody helping with paddle boards
So
or
the
boats?
boating beach will be open till, I think, like, October 6th.
Okay, so it will be
Yeah,
open through
October
September.
10th.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
They might have to go in a different, or go in. and
Right,
go
a different
round,
entrance.
But the boating will
Okay.
continue its season, and then, but it won't open the next year until Memorial Day at the earliest.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. I'll make sure people know that because
We'll be.
people love September for that. That's why people were like, if it's going to be closed in September, I don't know if I'm going to sign up. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're gonna be communicating all
Okay.
that with the boat, but maybe we'll move that up to
Yep.
communicate early if they're worried about buying their spaces. So
Absolutely.
thanks for
Yeah.
that little tidbit.
Yeah.
But we'll be communicating all the closures and everything as we move forward.
Perfect.
Not really going to spend too much time here. This is the other remaining funds. The numbers that kind of pop out here, if you look at the special recreation fund, we are projecting $43,000 excess revenue compared to an $85,000 deficiency in revenue over expenditures next year. That's all capital spending related. We had budgeted for some of the capital at West Park to potentially take place this year, which it did not. So we wound up with excess. Winding up with excess in governmental funds is not always indicative of a positive thing. Just means that our project got kind of pushed back a year, which is reflected there. And then a pretty large number variance between the bond and interest fund, $319,000 deficiency budgeted last year compared to a $56,000 excess. Again, that's just a function of the bond issuance last year. We paid some of the capitalized interest from residual fund balance, and that expense was reflected in that fund there. That's it as far as prepared slides for tonight. So if the board has any questions, comments, concerns on the budget, I'd be more than happy to address those now. Again, I know it's a 164-page document and there's a lot to go through. So I'm more than happy to kind of talk through any questions that you might have in the future or meet with you individually. Lisa and I could definitely meet with you and kind of talk through it. So.
You did a very good
Thank
job.
you, yeah.
It's very, very
Mhm.
thorough. Thank you very much.
Sure, though. I'd like to, John is so complimentary of everybody else, but his team, him and Brian really work hard on this budget. And along with, I've never seen a better recreation team, better prepared to do their own budgets than our recreation team. So that's a testament to
Absolutely.
Bobby and his in-depth training and Adam under him. So they do a phenomenal job. So it's really a team effort, but a lot of the work and the hard lifting goes to John and Brian. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bobby, you're going for is it 7, 8 percent increase in rec revenue next year? Is that what I saw?
It was 15 overall.
15?
Mm.
I not see.
Some of the fee, you're looking at some of the fees. Children's Circle is a 5% increase. Some,
Yeah.
it varies depending on, goes back to that categories of service. We really try to be consistent and fit into those categories. So a lot of the fees, when we do the budgets, we look at that net margin and we adjust the fees based on keeping that consistent and within our policy of categories of service. So like camp traditionally would have a 50% net margin and
Yeah.
that 50% would then cover our overheads. So we would build the fees around that. So some things we've actually had some savings this year because minimum
Yeah.
wage isn't going up.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're at your projected revenue for under the rec fund, the 4 items, admin, rec, children's circle, fitness. 10.1-ish, and you're going to 11.4. You're right, so it's a higher. This must have been looking at just one fund.
Mostly driven by FSA and children's.
5% fees. What percent is FSA about? Like,
FSA is gonna be over $1 million of revenue this year, up from about 484,000.
you know,
So
and
it's
that's
doubling.
Wow.
It's a 70-30 split.
It's at 75-25. There's some additional expenses related to busing, but
Yeah.
generally about a 75-25% split.
So it's not so much new programming as it is existing programming with additional bodies.
Yep, growth.
And that programming, 75% of it is non-resident revenue. So it's really
Oh.
revenue from outside of the community. So in terms of growth, that's where that is coming from.
Yeah.
Is this our second year for that? I
This
can't remember.
Second year with us,
Okay.
yes, correct.
Do we have risk of these? You sparked something in my head, Lisa. Maybe it was John. It was John, not you. Do we have risk of these moving away to the Northbrooks, to the Glenviews, to other park districts that may? Well, I mean, 75%. You know, I would call offshore. 75%, like.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
Yeah.
And Bobby spoke to that there's always that chance of that
Mhm.
they decided they want to go to another facility. So that's why our model's not totally built around them. So that's kind of.
Correct,
pretty-
yeah. There's definitely that risk. I will tell you, there's certain camps that have approached us about wanting space as well that we've said no to, and they've had to go look, and other park districts are also struggle. We are very lucky with the facilities we have. A lot of other park districts, Winnetka and Northbrook, don't have the types of rec centers that we do, and they rely heavily on the schools.
But they have, they have other things, right? So Winnetka has
Correct.
a beautiful AstroTurf thing that you can use 7 months a year.
But,
So
yeah,
it
they
comes
have
and goes. Yeah. I
We,
mean-
and our model is very good because we have the athletic fields next to the schools. Not everybody has that. So that really works well
Is
for a
it
model
indoor,
for camps
outdoor?
also.
Yeah, it's where they both seem very happy. FSA has expressed interest if there ever was an opportunity for an all-girls sports camp. So there's that
that'd be
always
cool.
if that was to happen. But Game On does a great job, and we're very happy with them.
Throw up game on here.
Yep. So we've Game On, so that's not as much revenue as FSA. I think it's about 600,000.
Yeah.
So again, we have sailing and aquatics too, and we've also this
Yep.
year expanded our before and after care to Action Quest and to sailing and aquatics and to the sports camps. So we do have some additional organic growth there.
Good.
Yeah, it allows working parents to be able to go to some of those specialty camps where they weren't able before because we'll
Yep.
provide the after-school care. So.
Do you see, let me ask a question. Do you see as an indicator of what potentially is going to happen with the camps based on how many people are using, like, say, Children's Circle or Kids Club? So in other words, is there like a
Like the
trail trend?
younger,
So yeah, like if you see an increase in after-school care or in the need for something, right, with the kids, I would think that's an indicator of what you would expect in the camps.
Yeah, absolutely. We
That's it.
definitely with Children's Circle.
Yeah.
The big indicator too is the grade sizes in the school. We watch that very closely. We're actually going to undertake a research project this year with our intern where we're going to do some analysis on people who go through our Children's Circle program and how long they stay in our programs to get a better idea. We've done it before, actually. Commissioner Covey initiated this idea a couple of years, but we track if you're taking our Children's Circle programs and our preschool programs, how long are you staying? How sticky are you as a customer? Are you buying beach passes? Are you in at Weinberg? So the buy-in you get from being kind of at the ground level getting in the elevator at the Park District, going all the way up. We know anecdotally that we want to put some numbers around,
Sure.
is it 75% retention rate, whatever it might be. So that's some data we're going to be looking at pretty closely this year.
If they start in our program, children's service, and then they go up to Kids Club, we pretty much have, they trust us.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the care of their child, and those are the parents that need it as essential services. They're not the one that's just doing it. And
Those
so,
general members on their way to global services.
yep, there you go. There you go.
Well, I mean, it is a key
Yep.
way to get
Yeah.
people in.
Mhm.
I think my big concern, and it's really not my concern because I'll be off the board at that point, but you're gonna get to a point where you just max out.
We will. And we talked about that.
And,
We know that.
you know,
Yep.
that's no fun unless you go acquire land somewhere. Maybe like or was it that we wanted to put the dog park, what people
Forest
suggest-
Preserve?
Yeah, the forest preserve.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
What?
Good luck with that.
We tried to
Put a dog
work out a deal with the Forest Preserve at the,
my
Forest
God.
Preserve down
Oh,
there
yeah.
to have dog park
north.
north. No, it didn't go
I mean,
anywhere.
it's a perfect
Yeah,
place for.
Every year I ask.
Oh,
Pardon?
that, you know, that little house of Glencoe or whatever?
The
That's
one out by like
By
Skokie Country
Skokie
Club?
Country
Yeah,
Club.
that'll be tough to do anything.
That's
with, right?
first,
Because
that's
there's-
Forest Preserve land also.
Oh,
And there's no parking
Not
there.
ours, yeah.
There's no
Yeah,
parking
you're right,
there,
there's no
and it's
parking.
surrounded by residents.
Yeah.
Like, it would be hard to. I would love to, I would have loved to got that land up there, because it's like, there's a great.
that is,
parking lot.
that is by
It's-
nothing.
I know it's used by the Forest Preserve. I
I do.
have a feeling, and maybe I'm biased, that we could use it more efficiently and better for the.
Probably could. I
We
really
could have
want
taken
Hoover
that
State.
circle in the
That didn't
middle of
happen
the
either.
new subdivision.
I
I can't imagine why you couldn't compete with the.
don't know why I couldn't
With the
compete.
Hoover Estate.
I really wanted that one too.
We'll get their money.
I tried.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, that would have been amazing, wouldn't it? There's also, we didn't put it in there, but
Mhm.
we also do stipends to community organizations. And the three that we do is to GGHP,
Yeah.
GYS, and Family Services at Glencoe. So we have budgeted this year for GGHP and GYS 5,000 each.
Mhm.
Transparency, GHP asked for 7,000, but when I really broke down what they're using the money for, 5,000 is more appropriate. They, for example, they do teacher appreciation at the schools. Well, that doesn't really benefit the Park District at all. So, but the programs that do benefit are some of their social services projects, which is really meet our mission. So, so that's appropriate 5,000,
Yeah,
which
that
is we would.
The Martin Luther King Day one, wasn't that one of?
Yes,
the-
and we didn't, it was a combination with. us.
My daughters went to it. It was done in a
It was
flash.
done-
We should have made more. We could
Yeah,
have
we're
made
gonna
more.
That next year.
Okay, yeah.
Agreed.
Making that a little more robust, but
Yeah.
so along with the stipend, the dollar stipend amounts, we give both GGHP and then GWAS, we also give, they use our facility.
Yep.
The warming house, and we also do, we have budgeted some lighting, construction improvements, but we also use that building in the summer now, that we don't, so we want to keep that building up. We also partner, and that's one of Nate's jobs, is that community outreach to our community partners, to partner in programs like Martin Luther King
Mhm.
Day, or with GYS, we have skating days, we have beach days. So we work with them. So along with giving financial support, which we do, we also give a lot of the in-kind support.
Yeah.
As well, because although their missions are very much aligned with ours. We do not fund anything that competes with us. For example, GGHP has a very outstanding theater program.
Yeah.
But so do we, and we have our
Yeah,
people
Right,
pay for
yep.
that, so we don't help fund any of that, and they have a very healthy
makes sense.
balance for that anyways. So that's also in the budget, so you'll see, if you're going through the budget detail, you'll see that in there also, and that'll just be approved as part of the budget.
Yep.
Any other questions?
President Colby, the rentals in the corporate fund are park, playground, and gazebo permits.
There
Are
you
the
go.
what?
Park, playground, and gazebo permits,
Permits.
Yeah.
yes.
What is that?
So
Um,
when you rent a space of over
Oh.
12 people, you have to get a $75
Okay.
permit.
Oh,
So the gazebo, if you want to.
Because it better not be the rental revenue on that, because we spent a lot of money on rebuilding that gazebo,
Oh.
and
I think it's fabulous.
It's more, that's, we get some rental,
Yeah.
that was not the purpose, it was
No,
more of
but-
a community gathering space.
Do you
and things like
remember?
that. So, yeah,
we had a survey, a land survey come out, and they concluded that that piece of, that parcel of land, because it used to flood, was like the flattest parcel of land in all of Glencoe. And so we had to like put a lot of money into the drainage.
Drainage, yeah.
That we
We had to
did.
do it in 2 phases, one
Yeah.
for building,
Oh my
one for
God.
drainage.
But it is
Yeah.
like the flattest
Yeah. And a lot of clay.
piece of property.
Doesn't
And
really
a lot
drain,
of clay.
doesn't drain well.
No, it doesn't.
No,
So
we
it does now.
So now,
Wow,
a
yeah, but
lot of drainage in there.
It
So
does now.
like
Um,
half our fields, everything.
Well, thank
Glencoe.
you. Are there any other questions for Director Cutrera?
Jackie answered a lot. Jackie and I had a little powwow today. She answered a lot of my
Good.
questions.
Great.
Yep.
I have to say, Jackie is a great treasurer. She asks really insightful questions and the great ambassador to get that information out.
Yes, no, that's why she
So-
saved you guys time today.
Great.
Sometimes bring
No,
it down
thank
to the
You
more.
can always feel free if Jackie is driving to Chicago.
Yeah.
The others don't want to hear it on Bluetooth. You can always feel free to reach out to the board and to the
Yeah.
Yeah.
directors as well.
We are always here and available to answer any questions you have. Absolutely. And we will reach out to both Mike and Gary, and if they want to meet with us on the budget, they're more than welcome to
Yep.
also. Yep.
Okay. Well, perfect. Do we have any other business to?
We
for
do
today?
not.
Then, and I don't think there's a reason to go to executive session.
There is not.
Okay, then I'm going to recommend a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
I'm going to do all in favor.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
motion
you.
passes. Lisa, please
Team.
record the time. Is
We'll text
8:15.
Elena.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you all for
everybody.
your time.